بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله وسلم على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Inshallah, today we'll be reading Hadith number 32 from the book and the Risala of Imam Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, the 40 Hadith. And the Hadith start with لا ضرر ولا ضرار. عن أبي سعد بن مالك بن سنان الخدري رضي الله عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال لا ضرر ولا ضرار حديث حسن رواه ابن ماجه والدارقطني وغيرهما بإسناد مسندا ورواه مالك في الموطأ مرسلا عن عمرو بن يحيى عن أبيه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم فأسقط أبا سعيد وله طرق يقوي بعضها بعضا. So the first part of the hadith, Imam Nawawi mentioned the text of the hadith, and the second part he mentioned the chain of narration. Again, Imam Nawawi rahimahullah, he's one of the scholars to be known to have given a lot of importance on the chain of narrations. As you know, Islam is based upon evidences, and it's a religion that is connected directly to our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is what Imam Nawawi did in this particular hadith. He said toward the end of the hadith that there are a lot of narration pertaining to that, even though some chain of narration are weaker than others, but if you combine these narrations, they make the hadith quite sound of isnad. So this is the second part of the hadith, but the first part of the hadith is the text itself. The text itself is لا ضرر ولا ضرار, which means there is no harm in Islam, there is no harming in Islam, no reciprocating harm. This hadith is actually one of the principles of Islam, if not the most important principle of Islam. The scholars of fiqh, they have mentioned, when they try to extract the rulings of Islam, the main rulings of Islam, the main maxim, they extracted based on evidences from the Quran and on the wisdom and on the intention of the Sharia and the Sharia, Allah Azza wa Jal, what his decision, why did he command his slave with such and such, or he prohibited his slave with such and such. They came up with the five major maxims in Islam. They say one of the five is this one. The first one is al-umuru bil-maqasid, which means that acts are judged according to the intention. This is the first important maxim. And that is why in Islam you will see that most of the commandment of Allah, most of the prohibition of Allah or of the Prophet ﷺ, they all revolve around that he wants what's good for us and he warns us from what's bad from us. That is why in the hadith, Anas ibn Malik, Prophet ﷺ did say that لم يأت نبي قبلي إلا وكان حقا عليه أن يدل أمته على خير ما يعلمه لهم أو ينذرهم على شر ما يعلمه لهم. There is not prophet that came before me except that it was a duty for him to teach his people what was best for them and to warn them what was not good for them. So this is the first principle. The second principle is اليقين لا يزول بالشك, which means certainty cannot be disregarded or cannot be removed because of a doubt. And there's a lot of examples pertaining to that, but which I'm not going to delve into it. The third principle is, the scholar, they mentioned the third principle is this one, ad-dararu yuzal, which means harm should be removed. The fourth principle is al-mashaqqatu tajlibu at-taysir, which means that difficulty generally brings or begets ease. And the fifth principle is al-ada muhakkama, which means some of the rulings, Islamic rulings, can be based upon the custom can be the basis of Islamic ruling. And of course, the scholars, they have evidences for that. But the third maxim is ad-darar, which means harming should be removed as much as we can. Why? Because this religion of Islam is not based on harm, nor it has been revealed to harm his slaves. That is why there are a number of ayah from the Quran where Allah Azza wa Jalla has prohibited to his slave and his creation to throw themselves into destruction. وَأَنْفِقُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ وَأَحْسِنُوا. Do not throw yourselves into destruction with your own hands, and be good. وَأَحْسِنُوا. Be balanced, be good. And Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا لا تأكلوا أموالكم بينكم بالباطل إلا أن تكون عن تراض منكم ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم. O you have believed, do not consume each other's wealth in falsehood, except for a dealing that you both parts agree on. ولا تقتلوا أنفسكم. Do not kill each other. Do not bring each other into killing and destroying each other. And this hadith, An-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he explained what Allah Azza wa Jal meant by not harming. There's two types of harming. Either you harm others or you harm yourself. And this is without a doubt agreed upon. This is agreed upon in every religion, in Islam, in every religion. You're not allowed to harm, to the extent that An-Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam has forbade us to harm animals. And you know the hadith of that man who imprisoned a cat, and it was sent to hellfire because of that. Because you're not allowed to harm not even animals, even further than that, not even trees, living things that people benefit from. That is why when it comes to jihad, fi sabilillah, when it comes to war, and Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, do not destroy trees, do not destroy property that are that have benefit for the people. There's no harm in Islam. Islam is a religion that brings goodness. Now, the second part of the hadith is wala dirar. Dirar means there is no reciprocating harm. Mean if somebody harms you, can you harm the same way he harmed you? This is what the hadith, and there's a difference of opinion between scholars. What does the second part of the hadith or the second part of the statement mean? No reciprocating harm. The majority of the scholars, they say that you're not allowed to do the same harm as he did to you, based on this hadith. Because Allah Azza wa Jalla says in the Quran, وَجَزَاءُ سَيِّئَةٍ سَيِّئَةٌ مِثْلُهَا. It is saying in the Quran that the reward of the one who does harm to you is you're allowed to reply back with that harm. But toward the end, Allah Azza wa Jalla يقول وَلَمَنْ صَبَرَ وَغَفَرَ إِنَّ ذَلِكَ مِنْ عَزْمِ الْأُمُورِ. Which means that those who are patient and those who show pardon, then this is from the most determined of the affairs. So you're not allowed to bring the harm back. If somebody is trying to harm you, you're not allowed to reciprocating further harm. Yes, you've got to stop the harm without a doubt, but you're not allowed to harm any further. This is what the scholars have mentioned, such as Ibn Rajab rahimahullah in his explanation. So what we learn from this hadith, there's a lot to talk about this hadith, by the way, since it's a principle in the religion. I mean, in one short lesson and talk like that, it isn't enough to just mention that, but to mention what I've just mentioned. But this, we're trying our best to, inshallah, try and get the correct understanding. The first thing, what we learn from the hadith is that harm should be repelled as much as you can. Harm should be repelled as much and as far as capable. And harm should also not be repelled by a similar harm. You're not allowed to harm similarly. And they say, scholars, they say repelling harm is much more dutiful for you than bringing goodness. If you have two things, you have, I want to do something good, but by doing this good deed, it will bring me for more harm. What should I start with first? The scholars, they say that you need to stop harm from happening. So you stay away from the good in order to prevent any harm to happen. And this is the story of Qissat, the story of Kahf. If you know the story where Musa alayhi salam and al-Khadir who was a prophet, by the way, according to the majority of the scholars, that when they went on a journey and they embarked into a ship, and Al-Khadir, what he did, that he destroyed a part of the ship. And then the scholar, based on the story, the scholar, they extracted that repelling harm is much more important than bringing goodness. Because if Al-Khadir had not done that, then there would have been a king, a pirate, that would take all the ships that were in good state and so on. So the scholar, based on this hadith, they say that, based on this ayah, they say that we have to look at the lesser of the two evils. So it's important that we repel harm. Rather, it's more dutiful and more important than bringing good. And also the scholar, they mentioned that harm is of two types. Either you have harm to do with worldly affairs, such as harming yourself, harming your health, harming your property, harming your wealth, and so on. This is without a doubt prohibited. This is agreed upon without a doubt. And the second type of harm is harm to do with religion, meaning that if you do an act of worship, this will bring more harm for you by acting this act of worship. Are you allowed to do? The majority of the scholars, they say you're not allowed to do. This is why in Islam, a sick person isn't allowed to fast. Because if by fasting this will bring more sickness and this will, make him weaker, then Allah Azza wa Jal forbade him to fast. And so on. Like in wudu, example, if you have wudu, you do ghusl or you do wudu, and by doing wudu, this will bring more harm into your health. The scholars, they agreed upon that. They said, you're not allowed to do wudu. You've got to turn into tayammum, into tayammum, which is a dry purification. So if in Islam, when it comes to worship, Allah Azza wa Jal commands us to take the easiest part in order to prevent yourself from harm. So what about these worldly affairs? So to conclude, it's important to understand Islam is a religion that can never bring harm. And Islam encourages people not to reciprocate harm. Do not reciprocate harm with harm. So this is what the hadith is talking about. Remember, this hadith is a principle, one of the main principles in Islam, al-dararu yuzal, which means that harm should be repelled with as much as you can. And with this, as Allah Azza wa Jalla yuwaffiqana wa iyyakum li kulli khair. If you have any question perhaps regarding this hadith or no?